language, the Gaelic language, is in severe decline. At the last census, it was estimated that something in the region of 68,000 speakers were living in Scotland, and that's a very critical stage for any language to be in.
As with all minority languages in a precarious position, Gaelic is basically swamped by the dominant culture, in this case English, within which it survives. And it's generally been recognised for some time now that to counterbalance that culture, we need Gaelic broadcasting, because the dominant culture of English, not only British English but American English culture even, through the media, has, particularly for kids, has to be counterbalanced by Gaelic broadcasting. And there have been significant developments in Gaelic television, and particularly in Gaelic radio in recent years. That, I think it's generally accepted, must continue to develop if Gaelic is to have any chance whatsoever of holding its own.
Ach, go bit fáin nach an euro de marach de chuide gnelle, is a last station de chuide gnelle, is come last to January and Bleonich.
So Bleonich is crania go more is notion am
Gaelic broadcasting, Gaelic radio in particular, is vital for the language. It shows that the language is a language for today. It is a live language. It is a language people speak, not about, but they use it as the medium to talk about everything else under the sun. Gaelic radio especially goes into people's kitchens, it follows them in their car, they have it with them wherever they go, and people listen.
Wat het Janne vorm aarst krooi.
Gee, wat het Janne.
Wat de viergen die fijn macht.
I think you have to tie in the culture and the language with broadcasting. There has to be a link up between the education system, the broadcasting infrastructure, and to create that in the community, in the rural communities in Scotland.
My children have gone through the process of Gaelic medium education. First of all, it has done them no harm, as many people forecast it might have done. When they integrate at a secondary level with children who have come through mainstream English education, their English is just as good, their French is just as good, their chemistry and all their other subjects are just as good. The only thing is they have the bonus. They've also been educated through the medium of Gaelic. They have their own language.
Scotland's actually very fortunate in that it has a minority language. A minority language is now generally recognised in Europe and indeed throughout the world as being an asset. It's a cultural asset, it's an economic asset in that it attracts tourists, it brings another dimension, not only culturally to a place, but also economically to a place. The problem is, of course, that language, if it's a small minority language, has to be preserved and has to be preserved actively.
It's important that youngsters are able to see the language being spoken on television and hearing it on radio. And there's also a Gaelic diaspora further afield, in other parts of the world. And through the internet, that can also reach the expatriate Scots who are still using the language. Indeed, in some parts of the world, such as Seattle, there's a thriving Gaelic learning community there. So the language still has hope, and having a strong, established channel will hopefully sustain it.
We actually broadcast to the whole of Scotland, and people can access us now on the internet all over the world. So our programme goes literally all over the world, and occasionally we get people from places as far away as Seattle, Vancouver, Germany, and all sorts of places saying they hear what we do, and they must like what we do, because we've been doing it for years now and nobody's asked us to move on yet.